when you end up in conflict, I think the biggest cognitive mistake I see couples making is thinking that communication is what's going to fix their conflict. And so they learn communication tools and communication skills. And when they're feeling angry or they're angry at each other and they're feeling upset, they use their tools, and their tools often fail or make things worse and blow up. So I'll give you an example. Like the ubiquitous couples therapist tool is this kind of sentence phrase that goes, when you did X, I felt Y. And it's designed to stop two people pointing fingers and blaming each other. And you're supposed to be talking about yourself. And it's supposed to sound like, when you didn't take out the trash, I felt hurt and disrespected and sad. But when a couple's disconnected and angry, it often sounds like, when you didn't take out the trash, I felt like you're just an asshole. And the communication tool becomes a weapon, right, to further, that kind of empowers you to further hurt each other. And it actually can make things worse, because inside of using these communication tools as weapons, now you've taken away the only resource you had. You were banking on that communication tool helping you. Now the communication tool's actually not worked. You're left feeling even more hopeless, like, oh my gosh, if our tools don't work, we're screwed. Like, how are we going to do anything? And so this is something I discovered by accident early on in learning about relationships. I realized that it's not communication we need. We know how to speak English. And I'll often joke with my clients. I'll say to them when they say, hey, will you teach us some communication skills? I'm like, no, actually, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm like, do you know how to speak English? And they look at me and they're like, yeah, and they kind of laugh nervously. I'm like, think back to the romance stage. Did you have any problem whatsoever communicating? They're like, no. And so why do you think you need communication skills? And I joke with them about it, and we make fun of it. And I say, now, what was different between the romance stage and the power struggle stage? And eventually what comes out is like, we don't feel like we're on each other's side anymore. We don't feel like a team. We don't feel safe. We don't feel connected to each other. And so I realized that what has to come first is emotional connection. So you might think of it as emotional safety. And so I coined this phrase that's become kind of the foundation of all the work I do with couples, which is connect first, communicate later. And that's the third thing I want everybody to take away. Connect first, then communicate later. Never, ever, ever try to communicate with an angry person. You are wasting your time, or with an upset person. First, get connected. And then from the space of being a connected couple, you will communicate kindly, naturally, because you're not perceiving your partner as the enemy that you need to defend yourself from or protect yourself from. You're perceiving your partners being on the same side as you. And when you're standing side by side, safely connected, you can look out at the problem, and the two of you together attack the problem, not attack each other. And that way, the two of you collaborate as a team, and you're able to resolve what's going on, often naturally, without even needing communication skills. Now, I'm not saying communication tools are unimportant. They are important. They're just not the first thing that needs to happen. And that's the mistake I think 90% of couples therapists make. They teach their clients communication tools, and you will be blown away at how many of the couples come to me saying that couples therapy just made things worse. And I say to my clients, let me guess, they taught you communication tools, didn't they? And they all nod. Yep, we know how to communicate apparently, but apparently we still can't. And I'm like, no, you can communicate. It's just you haven't learned how to connect yet once the drugs wore off. You're so used to connecting automatically in the romance stage. In the power struggle stage, you need to learn how to connect when you don't feel like it. When there aren't any drugs flowing through your bloodstream, how do you create that oxytocin naturally without needing the romance stage? And so that's the next thing. Now, how do you connect? Well, I've got at least 20 techniques that I teach in my courses. I'll give you one of them that's very simple. Go to your partner when you're in the middle of conflict, give them a hug and say, I'm sorry I hurt you. Even if you think you've done nothing wrong, just apologize for having hurt them. Because you should be sorry that you've hurt them. Even if you think you were innocent, the fact that your partner is hurt or looks like they're hurt or upset means, and that you were somehow involved, means you were involved in that somehow. Some of the responsibility for their upset falls over here with you. And so just going up and giving them a hug, pulling them closer, hey, I love you. I'm sorry I hurt you. That's often enough to just soften the whole situation and bring it down to the point where the two of you are, instead of feeling threatened, are now, and now you can talk about what's going on from a place of being safe. When you give them a hug, I recommend you give them a hug for at least 10 seconds. Don't just give them a quick, hi, goodbye, hug, bye, and run off like an awkward hug. Like hold them, pull them close, bring them close. I don't think it's good to kind of do this kind of stroking thing. It often detracts from being present. And we often do this when we feel uncomfortable with intimacy and we're feeling a little bit anxious ourselves. We do this to either soothe ourselves or to, like somebody who might, have a nervous tick. This is what we can often do when we're hugging our partner. It's a nervous tick on our part. Rather just hold them and embrace them for 10 seconds and do it in silence even. Just hold them close, close your eyes and feel each other and then whisper in their ear, I love you. I'm sorry I hurt you. Or I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. Or I'm sorry, that this is happening to us right now. I want to make things better. That's it. I mean, there's many more ways to connect, but that's a good one. If all else fails, you can always remember that. An apology with a long, meaningful hug, your partner sometimes may even burst into tears, like, oh, I feel so much better, as the relief just, the weight lifts off their shoulder. And then you can sit down and say, okay, so what's going on? And use your communication tools and talk about things kindly and in a way that actually gets things resolved.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I really, really appreciate what you've shared, Bruce, because I think it's really, really powerful. And this idea of connecting before communicating, I think is so powerful too, for so many people in conflict or with couples that have, are in that challenging time and don't quite know what to do. But I want to ask you a follow-up question on that one, if I can.
Please.
That is, what about couples where the resentment, this sounds all well and good, but I know you work with the tough cases. So what about the couples where they've literally built up resentment after resentment after resentment, and maybe even the idea, like to me, giving my husband a hug and saying, I'm sorry I hurt you, I could totally feel that I would be very happy to do that. And I could see how that could break down whatever was going on. In fact, we've done similar things to that when we've been in conflict, and then we can talk and then we can reconnect. But for couples that have built up resentment after resentment, and maybe even the thought of giving that hug or receiving that hug almost feels like, don't even come near me, or I don't even want to touch him, kind of thing, right? Like what if it's gone beyond the average conflict kind of stage?
Okay, two things. One is you need to resolve and heal what I call never again moments. So usually if a couple's been together a long time, long enough to have resentment, there will be a never again moment, a moment in the relationship where one or both partners had this experience where they said, never again will I trust you to be there for me. And they shut down, they built walls around their hearts. And this will sabotage any attempt to repair, to reconnect, because every time it's like, nope, you abandoned me when I was giving birth, you were having a business meeting. Or nope, I found out that you had a secret bank account and you'd hidden it from me for 5 years and didn't tell me about it. Or nope, whatever it was, it's a betrayal. And nothing will sabotage your relationship more than unhealed betrayals. And so what I do with couples in that place is I take them through a very specific conversation that's too detailed to outline in the short amount of time we have here. But essentially, it's a process that deals with the never again moment and heals it. And there's certain things that have to happen. One of which is the offending partner needs to demonstrate, not say, demonstrate that their partner's pain and hurt hurts them. And this can't be faked. It's sometimes through a tear rolling down the cheek. It's sometimes through an expression of shock as the offending partner realizes the impact they've had. And it's a difficult conversation to have on your own because often the emotions are so high, it's hard to talk about without an explosion. It's much easier to have with a mediator who knows the lay of the land and can safely guide the two of you to where you need to go. And that's often the second conversation I'll have when I'm seeing a new couple one-on-one for the first time. The first session, I'd get to know them, and I'll see if there's a never again moment. And it's the first thing I'll deal with is never again moment, because I know that it'll be impossible to get past that and do any good work until the never again moment is healed. And they can be healed, and anywhere between 45 to 90 minutes is enough if both people are willing to get through 20 years of repressed hurt and resentment and betrayal. And what happens is kind of like a series of dominoes. Once the first one falls, a lot of the other ones go, because often a couple will come to me, they've been together 20, 30 years, and they've got, well, which never again moment? We've got 20. Do we have to talk about all 20 of them? And I'm like, no, you just have to usually talk about one. It's the one is enough to soften and knock over the others, maybe two tops, but usually never more than two. And then you can start doing the work together. The second way to think of this is to kind of like the suck it up, buttercup, and just do it. Like, I don't feel like giving my partner a hug. That can often be a kind of like, well, why should I? Do they even deserve it? And I kind of, there's another way to think of that is like,
he's got to do it first. Right?
Yeah, or he's got to do it first. Typical hailstorm thing. You're like, no, I'm not going first. You go first. You prove to me that you love me. If you start first, then I'll respond, but I'm not going first. And really what that is playing the victim and refusing to be responsible for the fact that, okay, our relationship is a problem, and that means I have a problem because I'm part of the relationship. So I need to take responsibility for the fact that our relationship is a problem. Let me go and initiate some kind of repair with my partner. But the example I often give to my clients is like, imagine you've been out to a restaurant with some friends, you've had a glass or two of wine, you get home, it's 2 a.m, you're super tired. All you want to do is fall asleep. Last thing you want to do is go to the bathroom and brush your teeth. Most of us will actually get out of bed and hobble to the bathroom, bleary-eyed, keep the lights off, find the toothbrush, brush our teeth half asleep, wash our mouth out, and go to bed. Do we feel like doing that? Hell no, we don't. But we do it. Why? Why do we do this? Because we have a commitment, and we've made our commitment a habit. And the commitment is to having healthy teeth. And we've turned this into a habit that, to not brush our teeth would be almost, unthinkable. Maybe we do it once a year, but it certainly wouldn't be a habit. Now, in the same way, all of us have a commitment to our relationship, and that is to have a healthy relationship. And what's required sometimes is doing things that we don't feel like doing. And we need to do them anyway. And I think many of us, because maybe of Hollywood, fall prey to this mistaken belief that we should only do things when we feel like it, and if we don't, it's not really loving, or if we don't, we're faking it. Hell no. I'm constantly doing things for my wife that I don't feel like doing. And that's how she knows I really love her. We are so different. When I, spend half an hour listening to her talk about her day, when I'd rather be out there kite surfing, and it really is pretty. I don't even know if you can see there, but the beach, you can't really see it. Anyway, that's the ocean right there.
Very well, but
it's very blurred.
We can see the blue.
I live on the beach in the Caribbean because I'm a kite surfing addict. When I don't go kite surfing and I sit and listen to her talk about her day, that's the most in love she can be with me, because she knows I've sacrificed something for her. And I think it's important to learn, it's a sign of maturity, to learn how to learn to do things we don't feel like doing that are good for us, or better still, that are good for our relationship.